power, pimp, preacher, fundraising, prosperity gospel. All of these things are buzzwords. And we're going to talk about these buzzwords. So don't you go anywhere. Racism is in there too. I'll be right back.
You can do it. Don't stop. Ed Montgomery. Come on. A new way of thinking. Transform your mind. Straight from the vine. Fresh new wine.
Oh, okay. Hello, I'm Ed Montgomery. Welcome to Fresh New Wine. Fresh New Wine is about the teachings of Jesus when he says, I am going to teach you some new things, expansive things, things like fresh wine that's been squeezed and now begins to ferment. And now it begins to expand when it ferments. But you can't put new wine in old wineskins because the old wineskins have stretched enough. You put them in old wineskins, the old wineskins are going to break. In other words, it's like putting fresh new teaching of this age and generation, period, into the old structures, the old spiritual structures that we've been used to and we've been told either through foreparents or racism or whatever. That's what fresh new wine is. It's beginning to change how the structures are created, what the wine is that we're talking about. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit it, mash it, crash it, do all those different things. Let me know that you're hit the like button on Facebook, wherever you are. Ed Montgomery 1 on Instagram. Hit that. Follow me there, and we are going to get right into this thing. So you're probably gonna want to comment as we're talking about it. Let me know where you are watching from. If you're watching from a city outside of Houston, let me know. A state outside of Texas, let me know. A country outside of the United States of America, let me know. All right. Where in the world do you start? Do you start with the pimp? Do you start with the preacher? Do you start with the prosperity message or the prosperity gospel? Do you start with fundraising? Do you start with, I did say prosperity gospel, prosperity teaching? Do you start with money? Where in the world do you start with? Do you start with tithing? Do you start with all of these different things? Because each of these things seem to connect with what's bugging us in our world today. And I think here's what spurred this, and I wanted to get into it today because we've heard a lot recently, preachers, pulpits, get in lines, get in pay lines. I want you to be in a line, $100 line, a $1,000 line, a $1,200 line, a $2,000 line, and you look out and say, now, what do you have? You have $1,200 or do you have $2,000? I only have $1,200, sir. Well, you're not supposed to be in that line. Get out of that line and get in the $1,200 line or that line over there, and don't get in the $2,000 line because you're not going. The implication is, well, you can't get the $2,000 blessing. You can only get the $1,200 blessing. Of course, this is totally ridiculous. We have heard people shut the doors, close the doors. We're getting ready to receive the offering. And so those of you who have given before and we go into the long, we hear this spiel about giving. Well, I'm not going to just stop there. Now we're dealing with subscription giving. In other words, if I'm on the radio, if I am, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for subscriptions so that if you pay $8.95 a month, you can get onto this radio station. And I've got so many 100 channels, 200 channels, and you can hear the news, you can hear this, you can hear that, and you can get and have your choice of subscription radio. When you get on the subscription channel that you're paying the subscription for, then that channel might have a program that's on there that decides and says, well, although, they don't mention the fact that you're already paying on subscription radio, they may say, well, we have a project that we're doing per month. I was listening to some Black Talk Radio, and they were saying that we have a project that we come up with once a month that we would like to give to help that particular organization that is doing great work, whether it's farming, whether it's helping people concerning food, whether it's helping children concerning education. These are all good things. You might deal with subscriptions that deal with children, and they used to show the children with, I'll never forget, was it Biafra? With the flies on the children, and give so much a month to make sure that you got the children with the large abdomens to where we can feed these starving children. Not only that, you say, well, you know, that's a shame that they use that kind of music to try to hit the heartstrings or manipulate people. What do you think the little dogs are? When you see the little puppies that are lost puppies and lost dogs and the cute little things, and they're all so cute. Their little heads are cocked and they're a little sad or they're whining. And they said, if you just pay so and so a month, we can house and shelter so many lost dogs and feed them so that they don't get hurt or get killed, and get them off the streets. And then you have subscriptions on YouTube, paywalls, $4.95, and I can tell you what's really going on my show. I can tell you what's really going on in my ministry. I can tell you what's really going on. Then you have some of the shows that says black networks, and not very many of them, just a few of them. I've heard them talk, and they said, well, we don't do subscription, but we do need you to give $1 a day or $5 a month. That will give at least $50 a year to keep this station on the air. Subscription, paid. Then you go into church, and church says, well, in order to keep the doors of the ministry open, you're going to have to tithe. We need the tithers to come up. Tithing is 10% of giving. All of these things are part of saying you got to do this to keep the lights on, to keep the church going so that we can keep doing. Now, but when one organization says about the other organization, yeah, you're doing, I don't like subscriptions. I'd rather ask people to just give so much a month, because subscription seems to me the wrong, basically, I have my glasses. Where my glasses go? Subscription to me basically is the wrong concept or the wrong idea. They're my glasses. Like I can see you on the other side of this. Then some believe, well, subscription is better because at least you're letting people know how much you're asking for a month. But then you get the money. In other words, if I get the followers, and then I get so much from the YouTuber, so much from this particular corporation. And now, so you're constantly throwing out clickbait, like just the titles of this show that you're listening to right now. Look at the title of it. Think that's not clickbait? That's sure enough clickbait. And so everybody believes something different. The subscription people believe something different from the folk who just give per month. And they believe this. But then they'll turn around and converge on the church. And how dare the church stand up? They insulted a woman, made her feel bad because she got in the wrong line of the church. Listen, everything, regardless of what it is that is out here on this internet, on television, cable, is all about optics. Come on, say it with me. Optics. It is how we see things and how we perceive things through the lens of our belief. What do you believe about certain things? What do you think about certain things? And I was listening to a particular show, and they were talking about the prosperity preachers. Now, yeah, we can take one of these titles. Let's take the prosperity preacher. The prosperity preacher, this is the one that I hear the most of. In other words, that prosperity teaching is about teaching folk, to get money, while the only one winds up with the money is the preacher, and the people wind up with nothing. That's prosperity preaching, prosperity teaching. Well, first of all, you got to get to the right definition of what prosperity is. The word prosperity does not mean money. Now, it might be something that turns into money. The definition of the word prosperity actually comes from Joshua 1 and 8. That's where they get the term from. That begins, and it says, and you shall have, you do these things, meditate on the word of God, meditate on the words, you will have good success, or you will prosper in the things. Anyway, the word prosperity means success. Now, how do you define success? Success can be, you can be financially successful, or you can be a successful failure. I look at it this way. You can live in a grocery store and starve. You can live in a library and remain ignorant. You can live in a church, sleep on the pew, have a Bible in your hand, and go to hell. You can be in a relationship with a fine woman or a fine man. But if you stay angry and don't reach your hand out to that person on the other side of the bed, you can be in the same bed and still wind up with sexual frustration. There are reasons for everything. But anyway, don't go anywhere. Watch this. I'll be right back. I know I'm not supposed to be interrupting right here, but remember, myalc.org. That's myalc.org. And you can also give at 713-742-2035. You can use your text to give or use your app. If you're on the app, you can go right to that donate button and it won't change anything. You say, why in the world would you break my concentration? I'm sorry, but I wanted you to remember, because you know what? Just like there's a break in here, there's also going to be a breakthrough in your life. I believe that. Now, let's go back. I was sitting there thinking, I said, yeah, we just, right there, we just gave people opportunity to give whatever they need to give if they like what we're doing. See, actually, who we're talking to, who people are talking to, whether they're on radio, whether they're on their networks, people are talking to their own people. I was listening, I was listening to Roland Martin. And I like Roland Martin because I listen to Roland Martin on a consistent basis, because Roland is very good at breaking down information concerning what's going on out there in the world today. Another person is Larry Daniel Favors, and I don't mind on subscription radio.
Rachel Maddow.
Rachel Maddow talks about it. These people are very good at breaking things down. Well, you're paying for cable. How do you think their salaries are paid? You're paying to be on Sirius XM. You're paying. They may not get paid, but they got to get paid by the ads that they sell. Notice, when they're talking about money for one thing, they have to turn around and says, do you sleep well? Are you cold at night and then hot later on in the rest of the night? You need to change your blankets and your sheets. And if your back hurts, you need to get a sleep bed that will make you feel better. They're selling things. Some people say, well, if you're selling something, that's all right. You're not deceiving the people. But when you tell people to tithe and deceive, that's deceiving people. Well, it's not that you're deceiving people. Well, I don't believe in the tithe. There's no such thing as a tithe. People don't believe in the tithe. Well, listen to this. They said, Ed Montgomery, do you believe in the tithe? I believe, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ and his teachings. If you ask me if I believe in any particular thing, now, there is a teaching concerning the tithe. Some people teach one thing, some people teach another thing. And understand something. Now, here's where we get into that white supremacy part of it. And I like to say, white supremacy, let me use whiteness not as a color on the color wheel, but whiteness based on how life was taught when the folk came over there from England and from Europe. and brought and the transatlantic slave trade and brought this information over. It's so interesting when they came over, either on the Mayflower, I think they wound up in Plymouth in Massachusetts, and Arabellum that wound up in Virginia. It's interesting that one group of them, 1620, another one 1630, one group was called the Puritans, the other group was called the Separatists. In other words, both of them dealt with separation or getting out of the system. So one group considered themselves purer and better than everybody else. The Separatists, as soon as they got off that daggone boat, it is said that they all began to go different ways. The moment they walked off the ramp, till they realized they better come together before they all get killed. So the country began in division. The country began in how we see things division-wise. So whiteness and the religiosity is in America from the beginning. What we are seeing is the intertwining of whiteness, white supremacy, white theology that has its basis in whiteness, and politics, all wrapped up and twisted into one huge knot. So that's what we're here to do, is here to untwist it. Let me start with the church stuff. We dealt with prosperity preaching, and prosperity preaching is, well, when you tell people God's going to give you something, if you give so much money to the church, God's going to give something to you. But then it winds up that the preacher has a Bentley and everybody else has nothing. Or the preacher winds up looking better than everybody in the congregation. And so people look at that and prosperity preaching, and they talk about, then they come up with, that means that the preacher is the pimp. And because of the pimp, because that's how it looks. And we've seen that through the book from Iceberg Slim and things of that sort. And they think this came from black people. Listen, this came from white religious people. It began, you got to go back into the 1920s and the 1930s. Actually, it began before then by a man by the name of Pfeiffer. And what was happening is when Dwight D. Eisenhower, when Franklin Delano Roosevelt was in the White House, the corporations who were headed by white men, the massive corporations, railroad, manufacturing, the industrial complexes of that particular time were paying 75% taxes. And they were tired of paying this to the government because Roosevelt was giving workers money, were giving workers jobs, whether it was WPA. I'll never forget, my grandfather used to talk about it. They say that none of the jobs got down to black people. Some of them, but very few black people got those WPA jobs. And most of them were digging ditches and things of that sort. But whatever it is, they got whatever little money they got. And so this man gets up and they said, well, we need something that will change America, because, and the corporations were trying to say, if you do what we do, in other words, drop our taxes, then there's going to be a trickle down. We will be able to hire more people, and the wealth will trickle down into the lower parts of America, down into the middle class and down into the poor and down to the really poor underclass. But what people fail to realize is nobody ever planned for that money to trickle down. What they wanted was to lower the taxes and to keep that money in their own pockets, because capitalism has to deal with an upper class as well as a lower class, as well as a middle class that you can manipulate. Now we understand that. Well, this preacher by the name of Pfeiffer started preaching this prosperity gospel. The prosperity gospel was the connection of money and capitalism. It was the connection, money and Christianity, capitalism and Jesus. Jesus no longer was just this carpenter out of Jerusalem, but Jesus had now become the mascot for Christianity Incorporated, Christianity the business. In other words, they were going to capitalize on the beliefs that people held in their hearts. And one of the number one things that began was with a new movie that was about to come out, I believe in the 30s or 40s. And it was, who calling me? Oh my goodness, I got this. Oh my goodness, oh yeah, this is hot. They were beginning, a new movie was about to come out by Cecil B. DeMille. It was called The Ten Commandments. And so in order to advertise this movie, they came up with an idea. And Cecil B. DeMille came up, you know that picture of the Ten Commandments with that funny writing, I think Hebrew writing or whatever kind of writing on stone? Well, they created all of these stone tablet things and they put them in different parts of the United States as we got to get back to the Bible as the Ten Commandments. But actually it was a PR campaign by Cecil B. DeMille and Hollywood in order to produce and push the movie The Ten Commandments. Wow, that was massive. Then they came up with another slogan. All of this time now, they're trying to get America to buy in. America was buying in because of the religious inclination of the American people. The American people believe that, you know, God's going to take care of us and that Jesus is our captain and Jesus is going to look after us. And the corporations and the preacher who was that first prosperity preacher who was not black, who was not a black pimp, who was white, had finally moved into Hollywood, bought a big Hollywood mansion, was driving the finest cars, flying around everywhere, had in the biggest church everywhere. This was out in the 1930s and the 1940s. Out of this particular era came men like Billy Graham. You know Franklin Graham's dad? Yes, who was in the White House and preaching in the White House and was not preaching a particular type of social gospel because they didn't believe in what was considered to be a social gospel. Social gospel means that you got to preach to those and lift those who are at the bottom, at least give them the opportunity to be able to reach up to get what was considered to be the American dream. But they said, no, you can't. We don't. If you preach that, these people will come up and move up too high. So they had to preach that we are all God's children. You see, there's a gospel for those who are white and a gospel for those who are black. Oh, you're going to have to chew on that because you see, daggone it, my time is up. You got to catch me next week. Hello, my friends. I'm Ed Montgomery. You know me, Pastor Ed, Dr. Ed. Thank you so much for doing what you do and contributing from your heart. People think giving comes from the pocket. Never has. Comes directly from the heart. In the world that we're living in right now, so many changes, so many things happening that will make us lose our faith. Listen, I've got to teach more than I've ever taught. Stay online more than I've ever been online. Because it's not just going to be enough to encourage. We're reteaching the faith. That's right, reteaching the faith. Because we have to begin to strengthen the teaching so that people who've never heard this gospel like this before can hear it and continue to move on. So when you give, you're pushing me and telling me and challenging me to keep going forward. Take a moment, go to myalc.org. That's myalc.org, myalc.org, and go ahead and click that donate button. It is safe, it is secure, and not only that, but it only takes just a couple of minutes, maybe even a few seconds for those of you that are already signed up. Or if you want to use your phone, wherever you're watching or however you're watching, you can use text to give. And that's 713-742-2035, 713-742-2035. Or you can go old school and you can write a check and send it in to Abundant Life Center or Ed Montgomery. It doesn't go into my pocket, it goes into our ministry. 772-300, Houston, Texas, 77215. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for what you already do. I am praying for you and I'm praying the best over your gift and over the offering. And I pray that abundance will continue to flow in your life. in so many different ways. It'll warm your heart. God bless you. Hey, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Hit that subscribe